listening to The Watchers, the show where two women from opposite ends of New Jersey watch movies about the immortal words of Socrates, who said, I drink what?
Oh, God, is this going to be us quoting this movie the whole time?
And so be it if it is.
Oh, my God.
I'm Andrea.
And I'm Jodie.
And we watched Real Genius.
We sure did.
What a delight. What an absolute
delight. God. This movie feels like my childhood.
So much.
And my teen years.
And my right now today.
Yeah.
I've seen this movie so many times.
Oh, my God.
In all of my research I did over the last couple of days, I only came across one negative review, and it's so wrong that we don't even need to talk about it. But I texted you about it. Like, my heart was racing. I was so mad.
Yeah.
So.
I swear to God, like, this whole podcast could just be like, I read a line and then you see if you can follow it up.
Our listeners would love it.
They would not. But...
They would love that so much. It's so funny because...
Wait, let me try it. He's one of the 10 finest minds in the country.
Someday I hope to be two of them. His dialogue is like...
It's so good.
He's like a little Mel Brooks movie all on his own in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, so many of his little one-liners feel like they could have come from, or like maybe more appropriately, he's like his own little top secret.
Yeah. Would you classify that as a launch problem or a design problem?
Your mom puts license plates in your underwear? How do you sit?
All of my filth was in alphabetical order. This was under H for toy. I could do this all day and we should not, but there's some that really were like stuck in my head for about a decade and a half afterwards. Mm-hmm. Like it goes from God to Jerry to you to the cleaners.
And now we're cha-chaing.
Yeah. Step forward. Step back. Oh, it's so good.
We can do this as much as we want. I will edit out as many as I need to make this episode under 2 hours. So you should feel free to do what's in your heart.
We were going to make you king of the winter carnival.
His reaction there.
I know.
Like, Kent is the worst. He's just the worst. But like the little part of him that does just want to be included.
I know.
You almost feel bad for. I don't. I don't. But you almost do.
Oh, God.
Hey,
this
Jodie.
Movie.
Yeah, what's it about?
Oh, it's the best. Mm-hmm. What's it about? Okay. So this is it came out the same year as Weird Science, which is interesting. Okay, so this movie is about it's like you could start with Hathaway or you could start with Mitch. Let's see. Okay. So we start out with Mitch, who is one of those like super genius high school students who is
15.
15.
Important to note.
Very important to note. Speaking of things that don't hold up, this is the big one. He's 15. He's a super genius. He goes to college early at Pacific Tech, which is supposed to be like a Caltech kind of situation, to work with Professor Hathaway on lasers and to work with Chris Knight, the previous genius kid that is now a senior. So he goes, he has some trouble adjusting. He meets Chris, he ends up rooming with Chris. And Chris has an attitude of, I don't give a fuck anymore.
He's our manic pixie dream nerd.
He is. Oh, God, I was so in love with him. And they butt heads at first, but it turns out that Chris is the way he is because he met the man in the closet, Laszlo Holyfeld, who was the previous version of them, who burned out so bad that he now lives in the basement. Turns out that they have been brought there to work on Professor Hathaway's weapons project.
Yeah, I mean, not to jump in here, but it's not even turns out. You know way before they do.
Oh, yeah, it starts with this.
It's the first thing you learn in this movie.
And that's what I meant when I was like, you could take this from, like, starting with Hathaway
and
the weapons thing. Basically, the professor is working for like a DoD contract kind of thing to create a very illegal laser weapon that can like vaporize a single person from space. And they're rushing him to finish it. So he's rushing the kids to finish it. And then in a disastrous turn of events, Kent sabotages Kent what would you call him?
I mean,
he was referred to as a toady in an article I read.
He's really this movie's villain to me, more than Hathaway maybe.
I think he's a victim of Hathaway. But anyway, so Kent sabotages the optics of the laser they're working on, which causes Chris to have a realization that they need to freeze it. So then they successfully build this laser, but then Laszlo points out that what could you possibly use this for? Clearly it's a weapon. There's a tracking system. And so then they have to, in the most unrealistic part of this entire movie, sneak onto an Air Force base and, like, hack, I guess, the computer weapon system to point the laser at the professor's house. They also fill his house with unpopped popcorn.
He hates popcorn.
He hates popcorn. He hates the smell of it.
I do too.
Really?
I worked at a movie theater for too long.
Oh, and this is me and cream cheese. Right.
It short-circuited my
I can't.
popcorn sensor.
I can't stand cream cheese. No, I'm with you. And so at the end, they test the laser, but they've reprogrammed it so it hits Hathaway's house. The end kind of wraps up in a little too neat of a package, but whatever.
Well, it hits his house, which he has been building
with ill-gotten money from the contract,
and it's clearly his it's very special to him. This house, apparently.
Yeah, and so the house fills with popcorn. The state senator and one of the other professors are there to witness this, so that his dealings will be revealed. And Tears for Fears plays. Kids play in the popcorn. End scene.
Do you think Chris and Mitch live to see the end of this day?
I know, right? I mean, yeah, that's the thing. It sort of can't decide how serious it is about the consequences of this because it's such a flighty, fun ending. And yet we're led to believe in the beginning of this that the people in charge may have murdered one of the guys that decided to leave the project. They joke about it.
And they're developing something specifically to do war crimes.
To kill people. Yeah.
Yeah.
When they're not supposed to.
I don't think that going to the authorities is necessarily going to be protective for them.
Right. Yeah. We're definitely supposed to think it is, though.
Right.
That, they have exposed this, and now it's over.
My biggest and only... I have two gripes about this movie. Maybe 15. That's actually my second biggest gripe. Yeah. We were fine with 15 and 19, apparently.
I mean, I was 15 and dating a 19-year-old in high school.
Mean, culturally.
Yeah.
Apparently it was okay.
Yeah. I know. Ugh. Well, but even before that, Sherry tries to, and she is not 19.
No, and I think we're supposed to think that she's not great for it, but it's okay for Jordan.
I don't know. When I was watching this movie when I was younger, I was kind of I don't know what was wrong with my brain. I was kind of that's kind of cool. She's she's got a mission. Her
mission to sleep with all the best and brightest minds. Good for her.
That's what I'm saying.
Girl boss, etc. But she says, "I've been waiting for you to be old enough for this."
Yeah, no, that part, no. I never thought that was okay.
Old enough in her head is
15.
15?
Yeah. No, that I'm not saying is good. I'm just saying that she had a goal for herself, and she achieves it by the end, because we forgot to mention that at the very end, Laszlo has won 31.8% of the prizes in the Frito-Lay sweepstakes, and she finally gets to, marry him, apparently.
Yep. Good for them.
Good for them. Laszlo is my favorite part of this whole movie.
He's so good. He's just so good.
Obviously, Val Kilmer's delivery of the lines in this movie is like top tier, but as a person who wanted to live in a closet for most of my childhood,
yeah,
and I don't mean that metaphorically.
He really is living the like borrower's life that I'd always wanted, you know?
I mean, it's Narnia.
Exactly.
It's like,
his little contraptions.
Oh, it's the dream.
He's really living the life.
It's the dream. He, like, you know, sneaks out, gets food, goes back into his little lair. Like, all I wanted was a lair.
I know.
All I wanted when I was a kid.
100% agree.
I mean, I used to literally, like, hang out in my closet because it was small and I could hide. Like, I was a not healthy child, I guess. But anyway.
My closet in my childhood bedroom was built under the stairs.
Oh, nice.
And it was like, the door was like half size, so you kind of had to crawl to get all the way into it, and it went way far back, and it had shelves built into it, and it was...
That's perfect.
I didn't need my room, you know what I mean?
No.
Like, all I wanted was
perfect.
Yeah, I was very lucky in that way.
I just had one of those 2 sliding doors closets, you know, that are in like the 1950s houses.
Yep.
But yeah, I would like duck in behind the clothes and just hang out back there, bring a light, read a book.
That's the best.
Yeah.
I would do that now today.
I would too. I definitely, if I didn't have so much shit in my actual closets.
I mean, I do work in a studio that is underground in a room inside of a room. So I've kind of...
Yeah, you've achieved it.
Yeah, I've kind of created that life for myself, actually.
I mean, I camp out of my car. Like, there's nothing like having a little nook that you've kind of like created for yourself. You know, like I built a sleeping platform in my car and like have the, you know, little space. Yeah, no, Laszlo has the dream. And then he leaves in an RV, which is also the dream.
Yeah, it's a nook on wheels. Exactly.
Yeah, that's also the dream. And they're off to her, what did she call it? I've got a survival place in Wyoming. Where I just came from. There. Where a lot of people, this is literally Silicon Valley billionaires have built survival places in Wyoming in the past 5 years like crazy.
I believe that.
Real estate in Wyoming has gone through the roof because of these like survivalist crazy people. No offense.
Says, yes, it's getting too weird around here.
Yeah. No offense to the survivalist crazy people in our audience.
I mean, I get it.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I'm one of the things that has been really interesting for me over the course of this little journey we've been taking is that I apparently am just really drawn to an odd couple story. Like, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, My Blue Heaven, and this one all have that similar vibe. This is a little more My Blue Heaven in that, like, both of them need to, you know, Mitch needs to loosen up a little bit. Chris needs to take himself a little more seriously, and they meet in the middle and look what happens.
And it's like a goof and a straight man, like, just kind of needing to balance each other out. Yeah. Oh, I do think before we start getting into that, I just want to make it known that at least I am aware that recently there have been some allegations about the guy who played Mitch.
Oh, no.
I know. So one of those organizations that like try to catfish people into interacting with underage kids.
Yikes.
He was caught up in one of those. Yeah, so this article from the Daily Mail says, Real Genius star Gabriel Jarrett, 53, caught sending sexually explicit messages to someone he thought was a 13-year-old girl.
Oh, no.
Through a something called the creep catcher unit, which also sounds a little suspect, to be fair.
Creep catchers caught a creep.
Yeah. So, he hasn't been prosecuted for it. This was a couple years ago.
But that seems pretty cut and dry to me. I don't know.
It does, yes. So this was from this year. Yeah. Social media vigilantes. Creep catcher unit. Ugh. So yeah. We'll just kind of leave that as something that we are aware of, and we will not...
Scandal noted.
Scandal noted, exactly. I also think that, to be fair, Mitch is the least interesting part of this movie.
Totally.
Like, even as a kid, when I watched it, I was like, he's kind of annoying. Like,
I was thinking about that on this watch. I was like, I don't think of this as his movie.
It's not.
This is Chris Knight's movie. This isn't Mitch's movie.
No, this is definitely Val Kilmer's movie. Absolutely. A few background things that maybe we can talk about to start us off. You mentioned Martha Coolidge as the director. She went to RISD, which I thought was awesome. She was the very first film major at RISD.
That's
which is
interesting, yeah.
Really cool.
That's
another
cool.
connection to our past movies. She was originally, we mentioned her when we did this movie, set to direct Some Kind of Wonderful. But she is the one that was replaced by Howard Deutsch because she dropped out due to creative differences.
Interesting. And then she went on to do this. Some Kind of Wonderful before or after this?
After, 2 years after.
After, okay.
Yeah. She did Valley Girl. And then, she was not sure she wanted to do this movie because this was sort of in the heyday of like Revenge of the Nerds and that kind of nerd humor. So the producer enlisted a couple of writers to refine the original screenplay and also let her polish it. And so I think that is a little bit of how we got away from this being like a Revenge of the Nerds situation. You know,
it helps that this is a campus fully populated by nerds.
Yeah, because it's not a nerds versus jocks, right? It's a nerds versus other nerds. You know,
it's a nerds versus the worst nerd.
Yeah.
It's the nerds versus King Nerd.
King Nerd and then like Prince Nerd.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think having her at the helm really helped. There's 3 main writers for this: Neil Israel, Pat Proft, and PJ Torquevey. There we go. Found out some interesting things about these folks as well. The writers are writers on other things you would expect a writer like this movie to be a part of. So like Neil Israel worked on Bachelor Party, Look Who's Talking To, and then Pat Proft worked on Hot Shots and Hot Shots, I think also Hot Shots Part 2, Scary Movie 3. So they're like in that sort of campy comedy realm. However, PJ, I thought this was really cool. It was Canadian. It was an alum of Second City and SCTV. She produced and was head writer on WKRP in Cincinnati.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, and co-wrote Real Genius, Back to School, Caddyshack 2. She was also a trans woman who transitioned when she was 50. And there's this, I think we should link to this. There's a gorgeous sort of remembrance. She died when she was 62. Of her in the Hollywood Reporter from about 10 years ago. That is this like beautiful sort of story of this author's friendship with her and like the process of working with her. She worked with John Candy. Basically I thought of you that, so this whole article starts out, it's by, it's As Told to Scott Feinberg, but it's producer Stan Brooks talking about PJ, and it says, the 2 funniest people I've ever known were John Candy and PJ Torquevey. They're both famous alums from the Toronto Comedy Club, known as Second City, and it's just like this really lovely remembrance of them coming out and their friendship and all of that. So I loved this.
That sounds beautiful. Yeah, we'll definitely link to that.
Yeah. She had surgery when she was like 51.
Wow.
And her joke about it was, I was hoping for Christy Brinkley. I fear I'm heading towards B. Arthur.
Aren't we all?
I know.
Aren't we all heading towards B. Arthur?
Yeah. Unfortunately, she passed away I believe of liver failure. There'd been some like addiction issues in her younger years. But I mean, so much great work during her life.
For real.
So I thought that was really cool to like learn about her a little bit more. Let's see. What other there's so much background stuff on this movie that's interesting to talk about. I don't know if you have stuff that you're...
Yeah, the big thing that comes up is how important it was for Martha Coolidge and co. to get the science as correct as possible without encouraging people to create extra killer lasers.
Yes, they had to walk that line. Yeah,
I do really like that. But they brought in actual experts and stuff to work on that. And then they also, I think, as I'm saying this, I'm realizing I think that's maybe what makes this movie work so well is not only that, but they also brought in students who were living similar lives to try to get that as accurate as possible, considering the genre and all of that.
Yeah.
Obviously it's not 1-to-1, but I think they wanted the feelings of these people to feel true.
And the guy who plays the math professor was actually that consultant. Martin Gunderson.
I read that the professors were all real professors from California universities.
Oh, God.
It's very fun. Did you read the article by Phyllis Rosticus or Rosticus?
I don't. Oh, is that the woman who the Jordan was based on?
Jordan is based on?
Yeah, that was in Slate.
Yeah.
I really liked that because she does a nice job of talking about how the portrayal of Jordan is both sort of really positive and unusual for the time. But
also,
it
seems like her experience was positive and unusual.
Yeah.
Like she says in the article, I worked, whether I needed to or not, I did a lot to sort of be one of the guys so I wouldn't get treated differently. And I wasn't really treated differently. She notes a couple of moments in her career where the men around her actually did stand up for her. Mm-hmm. So I think she is maybe a unique case, but it's cool to see that Jordan, who also feels a little bit like a unique case, is based in truth.
Yeah. No, I loved that article, and I loved the fact that so there, in the article it says that she and 2 other classmates were invited to talk to the producers about the movie before it was filmed, and she says they had asked for a girl to talk to, so there I was wearing a sweater I'd knitted overnight the night before, which as a knitter, that's fucking insane. My bangs cut straight across my forehead and speaking in a voice that people still mistake for a child's. And so it wasn't just her, I think, that they based it on, but she was one of the main inspirations.
Yeah, which she says as well.
Yeah.
That review that I hated so much, I am going to talk about it a little bit here. I'm not even going to say where it came from because I honestly feel like fuck these people. It genuinely made me so
You're
mad.
So mad. I know.
I was so mad about it. 'Cause it was just gross because one of the reviewers was saying, oh, I really like Jordan. Another one was like, Jordan couldn't exist at a university. You might have somebody like Jordan for a week and then she'd be sexually assaulted. They were like...
She literally did exist.
That's exactly. The guy was like, I was an RA and I saw so many students like... And it's like, I am not here to say that men on college campuses... Or I am here, whatever. Yes, that is an issue, right?
Yeah.
We know that it is.
Yeah.
But... to say that this movie, one of their reasons for why they didn't like this movie and didn't find it believable is because Jordan was allowed to be Jordan in this movie without having to fight off predator men is so frustrating. And then in that same review, 30 seconds later, they complained, and I agree with this, that the problem with Revenge of the Nerds is all of the
sexual assault.
Right. So it's can't we have a movie where we don't just brush that off? I was such a gross. I'm sorry that you see Jordan, and that's where your mind goes. Well, that says so much more about you, buddy.
I was going to say we won't say where this review came from, but we will say that was a man that said that.
Of course, yeah.
No, I think we need to start a feud with this group of people, but yeah.
I'll fucking fight them. I don't give a shit. It made me, I was seething.
Because literally as a girl watching this, and I was never a science kid. I was always arts and writing. That was my vibe. But at the same time, I was a weird kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Very weird. And so, in this article, it says, like, among the students was the eccentric Jordan, one of the few girls in the film. She liked Mitch so much that she knitted him a sweater overnight. But she wasn't just focused on landing a boyfriend. She tinkered, showed clear proficiency in the sciences, and had no trouble keeping up with Chris, Mitch, and their other friends.
Yeah.
It showed Jordan as an integral part of a high-performance educational institution. She belonged there comfortably. That is what I got from that.
Exactly. And Man, I'm such a sucker for a weirdo who they let be a weirdo. Like, I know this movie is kind of full of, like, that's the point that's one of the points is that they're all kind of, like, misfits in their own way. And then in this movie, they all get to fit in.
Yeah.
But the fact that Jordan gets to be one of those, she's supremely weird. Like, but she's not manic pixie dream girl. Like,
No. She's incredibly
Chris.
smart.
Like,
And they don't try to change her. Like, in another version of this movie, preferably, probably in the 90s, she would get a makeover, right? Yep. She would go from this, like, weird little nutcase to, her boobs out and, like, her glasses
she'd
off.
And she'd say that like Mitch would be like, what did you do? And she'd be like, and it'd be some scientific nonsense she used to make herself hotter.
Right, right, exactly. And instead she just, like, helps them, with this big science thing they're doing. Like, I really don't, I don't see that in her. Like, I think the main flaw in this movie when it comes to women, is obviously they don't talk to each other at all. But also that that she even has a love interest in Mitch. Like,
right.
Because I don't think somebody like her would actually be interested in someone like Mitch, to be honest with you.
No, I don't think so either. Least or chief of all, I'm not sure which, but that he is a 15-year-old child.
Yes.
Like, and like 15 and 19 that's a big difference.
Yeah,
like,
it is.
Not like, it's not just that
as someone who dated a 19-year-old when she was 15, I can agree with that.
Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I look back now and I'm like, yikes.
And I think it's so, well, we had the same thing with, it was a bigger age difference, just shifted forward with Hiding Out, where, what's her name, Ryan? I think her name is Ryan. Jordan.
Yes, because she's cool, because she has a boy's name.
Yep.
There we go.
Ryan she's 18, I guess, at least, but he's almost 30, that, like, weird, and that is just kind of brushed off, and that's annoying. And especially because this movie, Mitch doesn't need a love interest, and neither does Jordan. This movie, but it's,
it just has to be kind of shoved in there.
Right.
But I will say, so the counterpoint to what I just said is also in the same article, where she says Jordan is an inspiration for some of the women that had contacted, the author of this article, because she says she's smart, keeps up with the boys, doesn't conform to feminine stereotypes, rescues others, is nice, and still ends up the romantic interest.
Right,
so, like, there is the fact that, like, the romantic interest in this movie is a nerd.
That's true too, because there's a version of this podcast where if she hadn't had a love interest, we would have been like, oh, why does the cool quirky girl have to, like, also be, like, totally desexualized, right? So like, but okay, anybody else in the movie, let anybody else except for Kent be her love interest.
Even Kent would be better because he's at least the right age. Yeah. No, I loved this article. She talks about, like, like you said, the ways that her experience was abnormal, and also the ways that being a woman in STEM, especially at that time period, had its own challenges.
I think it's from that article, or maybe another one. We'll link to everything, though, where at the time, and I think I know now it has changed, but at the time, the, like, ratio, and at Caltech in particular, which Pacific Tech is based on, was 7-1.
Yeah.
So it's not the movie doing a bad job at representing diversity. It's the movie doing a good job representing
the reality.
Poor. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And she says at the very end of that article, 30 years since Real Genius, the class of 2018 at Caltech entered with 2 women to every 3 men. So better.
Hell yeah. Much better.
Yes. No, I loved reading that because I find Jordan to be, like, one of the most fascinating characters in the movie, because, like, even though I wasn't a science kid, like, I am constantly picking up new hobbies, and, like,
Yeah.
Like learning how to do new ridiculous things. And...
Man, I love, she and Chris are really the match, because the two of them are like, because Chris Knight isn't, I mean, he's like a slacker in this movie, kind of, in that he's like not interested in the schoolwork, but he's always doing cool stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's got all sorts of little like mini inventions all over the place.
It's so fun. He's so fun.
Yeah. I mean, we said this last week when we were introducing this movie, but this really ruined what college was supposed to be for me. Like, I really was like, college is going to be amazing. I'm going to ice skate in the hallway.
Quirky parties.
Fun, yeah. Like, and a bunch of nerds, which would have been a delight for me as a nerd. Like,
me and all my cool nerd friends.
Yeah, yeah. Having, like, you know, parties with inflatable pools and...
So good.
Yeah.
Tanning invitational.
Such a weird.
Like, think about how much work it must have been to set all that up. He is a dedicated mind.
Yeah.
It's just not on school, you know?
He is. Yes. Other, like, background info that I thought was interesting. And I'm doing this mostly because we're going to delve into just randomly quoting the movie if we're not careful here. I texted you this morning, John Grease, who plays Laszlo Hollifeld. You mentioned he's also Uncle Rico in Napoleon Dynamite.
That's right.
Which I had known about and then forgotten, because Napoleon Dynamite was one of those movies that, like, everyone was obsessed with, and I was kind of like, yeah, it's funny. Okay.
So Napoleon Dynamite suffers in hindsight.
Yeah.
Because I was also... I feel like with you being a few years older than me, I could see being a little eye-rolly about that movie. It came out in, 2004?
Yeah, it did not come out at a time when I was, like, in the mood to watch that movie, that's for sure.
2004 it came out. So I was a senior in high school, and I was just, like, probably if I'd been a couple of years older, I might have been, although I'm sure there are plenty of people who are older than me who love that movie. But So I saw that movie in the theater twice. I loved it. I thought it was so weird and so irreverent. And then everything in comedy after that tried to be Napoleon Dynamite. And that, like, weird for weird's sake, like, so random stuff that I am exhausted by now.
Yeah.
Like, it's not Napoleon Dynamite's fault. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I still, like, my knee-jerk reaction to that movie now is to roll my eyes.
Yeah.
Which is upsetting because I really did love that movie. That's another movie, like, I can quote still, despite having not watched it in probably 15 years at this point. Like,
yeah. And if I had seen it at a different time in my life, it would have done the same thing to me. It just was the wrong time.
I remember those opening credits in that first scene. Like, Napoleon gets on the bus and he throws his action figure out the window. He's got it on a fishing line. And it's like, I remember being like, oh, this is so weird and I'm going to be obsessed with it. Yeah. And I was. And now, sadly, like, I'm exhausted by that kind of humor.
Yeah.
And it's not Napoleon's fault. But,
no. And it's not Uncle Rico's fault.
No, he could throw a stake over them mountains, though, just so you know, Jodie.
The thing that freaked me out is, like, when you see somebody, you know, 30 years after a previous part and you don't recognize that it's the same person. And that is, he was in White Lotus playing Jennifer Coolidge's husband just this past season.
Funny.
And, like, I watched all of White Lotus. Like, it's just candy. It's like, you know,
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's great, but it's like, it's the kind of thing that, like, you watch it, you enjoy it, and then it's kind of gone, right?
That makes sense.
But yeah, he has a pretty significant role in, actually he was in both seasons, but more in the second season as Jennifer Coolidge's husband, Greg. So, and it just did not occur to me that that's the same face, but it's obviously the same face when you look at it again. Michelle Myrink, who played Jordan, had retired from acting literally like 3 years after this. She was like, I'm good.
I noticed that with a few of the actors in this movie, they don't.
No.
And it's not even like, a lot of times with these, when we dive into the actors, we'll see they did a ton of bit parts and throughout where you can tell that they really tried to make a career out of it. But there are a lot of actors who just, like, their last credit is in, like, 1985.
Yeah. She stated she wanted more out of life than the profession was offering, and she became a Zen Buddhist. And then moved back to her hometown of Vancouver and just raised kids and eventually started in acting school in 2013, but
Interesting.
she has not acted since 89.
I also know her. She's got a small part, but it is an important one in The Outsiders.
Yeah.
And that book was my favorite book, like can still quote the opening chapter, like can still quote long passages of that book. I've read it so many times. And she plays Cherry Valance's friend Marcia. She's the one who if you've seen the movie, she's like sharp and has like a little flirty back and forth with Two-Bit, and it is
I have seen that movie,
great.
but I haven't seen it in a million years.
Yeah, she's Cherry's friend at the drive-in. She drinks the soda that is offered to her, which is like a big deal because it's like Cherry has standards and won't, take a drink from a greaser. And Marcia's like, I'll take a free soda. I don't give a shit. And I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so she's great in the couple of things that she's in, but good for her.
Yeah.
She can do what she wants.
She's like, no, I'm done. Other sort of production stuff that I knew about the myth. Have you watched the Mythbusters episode about the popcorn?
I haven't watched it, but
I think I saw it when it first came out. Because I remember, I just have a vague memory of it. But yeah, they did a Mythbusters episode about the popcorn scene at the end, to see if it was possible to destroy a house by popping that much popcorn in it.
Apparently,
not really.
Yeah.
They used a small laser to pop a single kernel wrapped in aluminum foil, showing that it was possible to pop popcorn with a laser. But they could not get a laser large enough to do a real test on like a scale model.
she's very funny.
Yeah. So they tried doing it through, it says, like induction heating, and the result was that the popcorn was unable to expand sufficiently to break glass, much less break open a door or move the house off its foundation.
But
instead, it ceased
so
to expand.
Much popcorn. Did they think about that?
It ceased to expand and then simply charred. It was also specifically stated in the program that a 5 megawatt laser still did not exist, even in military applications.
Did you?
The most powerful laser was 100 kilowatts. Yes.
Do you know what the most powerful laser is now? Did you see that
I
number?
think I saw it somewhere, but no, I don't remember. What is it?
It's in the million billions. Like, it's insane. And apparently there's a laser. So I read, I will find it and link to it, that we are like orders of magnitude or whatever. I got a real STEM brain. I don't know if you know that about me, Jodie. Like more powerful than 5 megawatts, but apparently Vulcan 2020 is a laser that should be finished by 2029 and will produce a beam 1 million billion. That's 2 times brighter than the most intense sunlight.
Jesus Christ, why?
Great question. Did real genius teach these people nothing?
Obviously not. All science, no philosophy.
So upsetting.
Ugh. Where they talk about the popcorn scene, the
20 petawatts?
That's just stupid. Why do we need this?
We had to invent
a new term.
Oh God. The Vulcan 2020 laser is so named because it will generate a main laser beam with an energy output of 20 petawatts alongside 8 high energy beams with an output of up to 20 kilojoules. It's too many.
Why?
It's too many laser, Jodie.
We don't need it.
I mean, you know why? It's so you can vaporize somebody from space.
You know,
so you and I got to get our fake IDs, our fake government IDs, and I'll
climb
put the
onto the plane.
Yeah,
and replace the chip.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fun little note for that is that they're using Kent's car. I just love the recurring bit of fucking with Kent's car.
Yeah, it had previously been in his dorm room, and they somehow got it back out. I don't know how they got it in there in the first place.
That doorway is not wide enough.
No. I mean, I think it's implied that, like, somehow they took it apart, but you can't just take a car apart, bring it into a room, and put it back together. I don't think that's possible.
Well, they did it. They're geniuses.
They are,
and we're
geniuses.
Not,
that's true.
So.
We're supposed to just accept that. Mm-hmm. I love this quote about the popcorn scene from I think it was William Atherton said, now they do it digitally, I guess, but in those days you had to pop the dang popcorn and put it in a truck and schlep it out to the valley.
Yeah, apparently they spent literal months popping that popcorn and saving it in a giant container, like a huge, yeah.
And they had to coat it so it wouldn't disintegrate and protect it from birds eating it and
Do you think they protected it from birds eating it? Do you think they actually gave a shit about whether or not, or do you think that was a CYA, like a cover your ass line?
Maybe, but I just it would have been so fun to see that. They had a house purpose built for it in the valley where there was a construction zone.
I did just start to say how fun to swim in that, and then my heart started racing because I realized if you sank to the bottom of that, you would have no way to get enough leverage of the popcorn to pull yourself back up, and you would die.
I know.
It's like how people in a corn silo or an avalanche.
Yeah, in a corn silo. That's what you got to.
Yep.
Wow.
People die in corn silos all the time. I don't know if that's true, but I feel like that's true.
I was going to say, why do you know that?
Grain silo death. I'm sure that I know this is a thing.
I mean, I know about avalanches.
Grain entrapment. Got its own Wikipedia.
I'm going to have nightmares now.
Yep. I think about this kind of death all the time because a ball pit, you would also... The good thing about a ball pit is the balls are too big to get into your lungs, but you would... if somebody couldn't pull you out, you'd have no way to climb back up. They would just keep sinking.
There are sentences that you say that are just going to live with me for the rest of my life, and I think that's one of them.
They would just
The good thing about ball pits is that the balls are too big to get into your lungs.
But it's not true about grain. It's not true about grain. That's grain entrapment.
And you can breathe in popcorn if it's small enough.
You can breathe it in to your lungs if it's small enough? Is that what you mean? Yeah, absolutely. That's what popcorn lung is, right?
Oh my God. The good thing about ball pits is that the balls are too big to get into your lungs.
It's the one good thing.
Wow.
Now I'm thinking of a movie. Oh, no. Listeners, what movie or maybe TV show am I thinking of where this does happen? I can picture
that someone drowns in a ball pit? What happens? We've discussed 3 different ways of dying in pits of things.
Grain entrapment.
Grain entrapment.
Oh, it might be Jigsaw. Oh, no, it is.
Ew.
Okay. Yep, it's Jigsaw.
Yikes. I'm going to have nightmares.
I think about the ball pit thing a lot. Not a lot, but more often than you
Clearly.
think. You would just languish. I think there is enough space between the balls that you wouldn't eventually. I think popcorn, you would eventually run out of oxygen might be the issue, depending on how deep the...
It's about the amount of size between the objects, right? There's enough space between the balls and they're plastic so they don't change shape when they they don't mold into each other to form a solid. And
I think that enough air from the surface could get through to the bottom that suffocation would not kill you. And it would take a long time to die in a deep enough ball pit that is so deep you can't climb out.
Well, and the thing with avalanches is that the snow compacts itself, right? Mm-hmm. Because it and you can't compact plastic ball pit balls.
Exactly.
Why are we taking this so seriously?
I think it's important. Not enough people are talking about this, Jodie.
No, people are. Yeah.
It wouldn't even really have to be that deep. Just tall enough that you can't get your arms up over to the sides of it. You know what I mean? To pull yourself up.
Unfortunately, I do.
Whatever my arm span is straight up on my tippy toes, plus 4 inches would do it. I guess I could hop.
It would take less to drown you in a grain silo than me, because I'm taller and have longer arms.
It would take... Yes, correct. So that's a blessing.
Yeah.
For me.
Because you die faster?
Yeah, we're both going to... There's no getting saved. Grain entrapment is you're done. You're done.
I guess. Wow.
I was still thinking ball pit, but either way.
Right. The ball pit doesn't scare me.
Forever.
No, because you would get out eventually. I don't know how, but you would.
I don't think... I mean, you can't unless outside intervention.
They don't weigh very much, though.
Right. So you can't get... Imagine you're just flapping your arms.
But there's
trying
not.
to...
But there isn't an infinite ball pit. Like you could eventually move your way over to the edge, to a wall of some kind,
And then what?
and then you climb the wall.
If it's taller than you can't.
What if you... Okay, but those balls are not indestructible either. So what if you, like, smashed a couple of them and started to, like, build them up on top of each other? And so you could build, like, a step? I think you could get out. I think that you could get out.
They're going to be slip sliding against each other. I don't think you can build them
Not if you smash them and flatten them out.
Yeah, then you're going to have little hockey pucks.
About this. I think
I know you are.
I think you could
You're going to have a bunch of hockey pucks. I don't think you can.
I think you could do
unless you can smash them perfectly uniformly so they stack and don't slide, but they're going to slide.
But you haven't specified that the inside of this ball pit is like a smooth texture.
It is. Have you ever been in a ball pit? It's just a bigger one. It's just the biggest ball pit. I don't know what's confusing about this, Jodie. It is perfectly smooth.
I have more faith in my athletic ability.
It's not about athletics.
I believe I would drown in a grain silo. I don't know that the ball pit would also do it.
Well, that's an optimistic way of looking at things. I hate to break it to you.
I am an optimist about this.
I hate to break it to you. As somebody who has spent a lot of time thinking about this,
yeah, you're new. Clearly have.
You're new to the dilemma, but I'm telling you, it's lights out for both of us.
Wait, there's a lot about this on Reddit.
About dying in a ball pit?
Yeah.
Wait, really?
The first thing that came up when I Googled death in a ball pit, this is probably not something to laugh about, is reflections on the 1992 Chuck E. Cheese ball pit incident.
Oh my God. Man,
cut this out.
I have to tell you, we're not cutting this out. This is absolutely staying in. ENT Magazine, Dear Evil Engineer, how deep would a ball pit need to be to drown in it? I cannot tell you how good it feels to know I am not the only person thinking of this. Reddit, shower thoughts. If a ball pit was deep enough, could you drown in it? Again, everybody is... Here's the issue. Is you were all thinking of this the wrong way. It's not about drowning. It's that you would die slowly because you would just languish down there.
Because nobody would come to help you.
No, you would die in the amount of time it would take you to die from, I guess, lack of water dehydration is probably the thing that you would die from.
Yeah, apparently you're not the only person to think about this like in great detail.
Yeah. Well, and a couple of things I'm realizing now is that some people are saying that you wouldn't run out of air. However, enough balls apparently, well, I'm not thinking of it this way, but with balls, the balls themselves are very light, so you would need a lot for them to crush you, though eventually enough of anything can crush you, I think. Right? Like a snowflake is so light, but an avalanche kills you no problem, kills you easy. And
but I think there's water in there too.
That's true
and
too.
And that adds to weight.
But apparently the article I'm reading, which is engineeringandtechnology.org, you would need 44,000 balls to provide lethal pressure in a certain diameter ball pit. Again, doesn't matter to me. You just need enough to fill the ball pit up, and you will eventually die from starvation and or dehydration.
Yeah, only if you're like the only person within like a 10-mile radius locked in a room with it that's soundproof so no one can hear you yell from the ball pit.
This is two different brains here because I'm not considering the outside. I'm telling you that what would be that a really horrific way to die would be at the bottom of a ball pit that you can't escape.
Right.
That would be horrific is my point.
Okay. It would. Mm-hmm. It just is extremely unlikely.
Lots of things are unlikely in this world, Jodie.
There's so many articles now that are coming up.
God, I feel great.
I had the fright of my life. Mum, this is from Australia, falls into a giant ball pit and can't get out. Wait. Yes. A video of a mum stuck inside a huge ball pit waving her hands frantically for help has gone viral, and it's not hard to see why. I screamed for help. According to Vivian's Facebook post, things started out fine, but when she lost her balance and fell over backwards into the zillions of plastic balls, things got a little crazy. I could not reach the bottom and I could not stand up. I tried to roll over. I couldn't. I tried to find the net so I could grip it. I couldn't. My son was stuck inside too. I panicked and waved and screamed for help. No one came.
No one came.
Oh,
how did she eventually get saved?
There was somebody there. Apparently,
Yeah,
it says apparently
exactly.
Vivian's helper, who shot the video thinking she was filming footage of fun family times,
Hilarious.
took a while to realize something was wrong.
Hysterical.
It was then that the mom was forced to take matters into her own hands. I finally grabbed someone's hand and managed to stabilize myself and stood up. This is from a website called Babyology, by the way, so I don't know if any of this is true. But unbeknownst to the mom, until that very moment, her own son was caught under the balls too, along with several other children and goodness knows who else.
Horrifying. So
It was
scary.
then that the staff came by to help me drag the kids out of the balls before I climbed out. They were all about 6 to 8 years old.
Imagine if there were no one there to help. Well, if there were a bunch of you, you could build a human ladder eventually.
Is a giant ball pit. I'm sending you this article. This may give you nightmares. I don't want it to, but it might. Hold on.
Oh, I entertain so many horrors on a daily basis. Nothing. If it's not that, it's going to be something else. So don't you
Scroll to the
worry
bottom.
about me.
Scroll to the bottom for the video.
I'm always deeply horrified.
This is just too big of a ball pit. That's the problem.
That's what I'm telling you, Jodie. Now you see where I'm coming from.
You have to watch the video.
Oh my God.
It's just too big. You just shouldn't make a ball pit that big.
You know what? Another issue is that the container for it is net-like.
Yeah, so it stretches out.
See, these people, nobody's thinking like I am.
Need to have you in to inspect their ball pits for safety.
Correct. So true. Yeah, it's just not ideal. Not ideal.
Other science parts of this movie, they did actually create the ice hallway, which seems super fun.
Super fun, so unnecessary to actually do it.
Yeah.
And it makes me so happy that they were. That's what I mean about, for some reason, them getting the science right where they could was important to them. I think that's so funny.
Yeah, the crew used a frozen volatile gas pumped through thousands of feet of tubing beneath the corridor flooring that was connected to a refrigeration unit to keep the gas cold.
Man, I love that they had to figure out how to do that. It's so fun.
I know. The joy of Val Kilmer on ice skates, twirling around, saying, "I'm depressed," is
That's one of my favorite. I'm
it's
depressed.
so good. It's
Man,
so good.
He is. I know. And I know this whole movie could just be hours of this, but he is so delightful in this movie. He's so delightful.
Yeah. Yeah, he really is. I mean, the sort of silliness and the quickness of his responses to everything. It's just.
Do you know how much of it was scripted?
I think most of it.
Yeah.
I haven't read anywhere that there was a lot of improv in it. Yeah, if there was, it hasn't been widely reported on. But Val Kilmer is notoriously a pretty method actor. Apparently, when he came into audition for the movie, he was already in character and kind of insulted the producer, just because that's what Chris Knight would have done.
Right. Yeah, and I read the line was not a very that story, which I also did read, does kind of prove to me that he wasn't doing much wasn't doing. You just come back to our Zoom room. Who wasn't doing much ad-libbing, because the line isn't funny. It's just mean that he says to the guy.
Yeah.
Maybe you're smarter than me, but can you do this? It's so good.
Just as a little peek behind the curtain, I looked down for a second and I looked up, and suddenly Andrea's Zoom background was a ball pit.
I'm just
why I started laughing.
A hell of my own creation.
Yeah. I am in the classroom with all the recording devices.
And I was still at the Great Falls, another place you could drown, or a place, because you can't drown in a ball pit. You can die in a ball pit. They're two different
When they drained the falls recently, I was shocked to hear there were not a ton of bodies at the bottom of it.
Seems like there's a movie in that where some mob lackeys find out they are going to drain it and have to go in and recover all the bodies before it happens.
Yeah, exactly.
I would watch that movie.
Okay. I think that's all the background stuff that I have about this movie. Like, I just thought it was cool that they like took the science very seriously. They actually, Laszlo's scam was something that actually was like based on a real thing also. Like in 1969, students from Caltech tried to do what they did, like to game the odds with a Frito-Lay contest. And then in 75, 3 computer programmers used an IBM to generate 1.2 million entries in a contest for McDonald's where they received 20% of the prizes.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also read that his like contraption to do it is based on a Leonardo da Vinci machine and
his whole little setup is like a tribute to Da Vinci.
Yeah. Again, very fun and unnecessary, which makes me like it even more.
Yeah, exactly. When that closet door opens and you see, like, and he finally closes the door behind him and you see it start to open up and it says, "This is it." That's like one of the most exciting moments in a movie for me as a child.
Absolutely.
It's just like, he did it. He found it.
It's so good.
And then you just see the scariest thing he'd ever seen. Or no, the most disgusting thing he'd ever seen. Holyfeld in his pajamas.
Holyfeld in his pajamas.
Yeah.
And then Holyfeld offers to let Mitch borrow a pair of his pajamas, which is very nice.
Laszlo's so sweet.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart. It drives me crazy, and I know that Chris Knight is a better person than I am, that he doesn't rat Kent out for sabotaging the laser.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the only reason he doesn't is because it leads to his discovery, and so he kind of doesn't need to because he solved the problem, and he's like on this high from doing that. But
Kent's been such a pain in the ass this whole time. I would love to be like, guess what?
Yeah. But he got everything that he wanted. You know, he got the job. He solved the problem. Like, Kent is no longer that important.
It's not everything that I would want. What I would also want is for Kent to suffer horribly.
Right. That's fair.
Do make him think that he's got some sort of horrific mental illness where God is talking to him, though. So
yeah, he's researching schizophrenia at one point in the movie. Also, there's a lot of masturbation shame in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, the whole thing is like, stop touching yourself, Kent.
It's like, it is God.
Yeah. Oh, God. Roger Ebert really liked this movie. Mm-hmm. He gave it 3.5 stars. I kind of appreciate that. He's got weird taste in movies, it seems, but he says it allows every one of its characters the freedom to be complicated and quirky and individual. And he also says that what I like best about her, meaning Martha Coolidge, the director, is that she gives her characters the freedom to be themselves. They don't have to be John Belushi clones or fraternity jocks or dumb co-eds. They can flourish in all of their infinite variety as young people with a world of possibilities and a lot of strange, beautiful notions. It says, real genius contains many pleasures, but one of the best is its conviction that the American campus contains life as we know it, which I kind of love.
Yeah, I taught at mostly commuter colleges, and I think that because of that, I didn't have the weren't a ton of students stumbling in from their bedroom, basically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can't really comment on that, but I do like that they do all feel like little people in this movie.
Yeah. And I mean, my college experience wasn't this either. I was not a science genius. And I only was away at college for the first year. Like my freshman year, I went away, and then I came back and went to Montclair and commuted from home. So I didn't have this experience either. I did have 1 year of dorm life, but it was not nearly this fun.
Right.
There was no graffiti in the hallway.
Weirdly, grad school to me, and I didn't live on campus then either, but I think my grad school experience was closer to this because so many of the people who went to my grad school, my program was pretty competitive. And so a lot of people moved to Jersey for this program. And a lot of us were adjuncts who shared office space and spent so much time together. And we had a building on campus where all the grad students also hung out that felt kind of like like a dorm in a way. You know what I mean? Like, I took plenty of naps in my office. So like that
that's
kind
true.
of like weird little community again of little weirdos all sort of banding together.
I mean, I went to an MFA program in visual art, so I also had that. Like, the studio spaces at school for the grad students were a fucking disaster. Like, they did look like that hallway, right?
Exactly.
And like the scene in where they're studying for exams, and the one kid gets up and starts screaming at everyone and like runs out, and then they just kind of calmly, like, that could have happened in art school at 3 a.m. when we were all in our studios. Like,
exactly.
The number of, ridiculous breakdowns we all had. So that part I did get in grad school too, I think.
Yeah. So it's not, because I think a lot of this movie feels unrealistic, but I think the heart of it weirdly doesn't, despite the sort of like fanciful nature of so much of it.
Well, and a lot of the critiques that I read of this movie earlier on, before the past 10 years or so, was the like unrealistic nature of a bunch of college students working on something that serious. And like, but that's not that far-fetched at all. Like, we're literally like in the middle of yet another moment of like, has science gone too far?
Exactly.
With AI and everything. Like,
yeah, and I don't think, I mean, I think I read a couple of articles that were like, not to this extent necessarily, but definitely students working on projects for, and it's important to remember too, is that like most of the time at this level of like expertise in any field, the people teaching the students are also working in their fields.
Yeah.
And often use those students to help, like that. Just
it's not that far-fetched at all.
No, and it's often not in like a negative way,
right?
But I know like personally people in my life who in much more benevolent ways have worked at university level in grad school on projects that went on to have real world implications because they were working with professors who worked in the real world in their field. Does that make sense?
Well, and that's the thing, is they even say in this movie, like, kind of jokingly, lasers are a young science because, he's 15. But it's true. Right. A lot of these sciences are being spearheaded by, people that are not that far out of college.
Exactly. So I don't think that part of it is, I don't think is particularly unrealistic.
No, I don't either. This is a total side note, but I didn't notice this the first 1,000 times I watched this movie. In Kent's room, when after they've implanted the chip in his braces and they're talking to him as if they're God, why are there handprints on his walls? Did you notice this?
I just haven't thought about it because there's so much weird graffiti stuff.
I know, but not in his room.
Yeah.
There's just handprints on his walls.
I wonder if we missed, if there was something that was cut or something of them.
It was so creepy this time. I don't know why I never noticed it before, but they're literal, like, they're like dark
Blair
colors,
Witch.
But
it's the Blair Witch of it all that made it pop for you. It is.
There's like bloody handprints or something on his walls. It's really creepy.
Why do you go into our closet? To get my clothes, but that's not why he goes in there. Of course not. He's twice your size. Your clothes would never fit him.
20 points higher than me. Thinks a big guy like that can wear his clothes. I did not have to look that up.
Thinks a big guy like that could wear his clothes.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, it's so good. What do you want, Knight? World peace, but I don't think this is the time to discuss it.
Little note, Chris always calls Jerome Jerry by his first name.
Yeah.
Kent is not allowed to call him that.
Yeah. He calls him your joggingness at one point. Oh, God.
We know Ed Lauder from Girls Just Want to Have Fun, by the way. He's the kind military dad. He's the mean military man in this movie.
Yeah. There's a lot of sort of wardrobe flair happening in this movie. Mm-hmm. Chris's bunny slippers and his crow slippers. And then at the end, when the other professor comes in, they're both wearing different bunny slippers. Like,
Chris Knight is just so well dressed in this movie.
Yeah.
Again, it's the Manic Pixie dream nerd of it all. When he shows up to that tour for the job and he's wearing the little doodle-doodle-oots. That thing is when I wear it anywhere else, it chafes.
Yeah, and the Toxic Waste t-shirt. I love Toxic Waste. I mean, do we need to talk any more about the like role of women in this movie? Like, they kind of don't have one outside of Jordan. They're beauticians.
Yeah, a bunch of beauticians. We've got a bunch of beauticians. Student beauticians. We've got Jordan. We've got
Sherry.
Sherry. And
the daughter.
And the daughter. And they're kind of it. It's a mixed bag here because the two other women in this movie are sexually liberated and
blonde.
Confident blonde women. But they are confident. It's, they're only there to really be like interested in sex. But I'm okay. I don't know. 1980.
Yeah. No, I actually remember thinking like, I remember. I don't know. We maybe we're like hunting for crumbs here, but like I do think that the fact that Sherry, who is clearly an older woman, is seen as like a sex object by Chris in the beginning. Mm-hmm. Like I kind of at the time found that surprising and fun that like she's clearly like in her maybe her 50s or 40s. I don't know at the time.
Yeah, who knows? But she's not. Especially
She's not
young.
His age, yeah.
Yeah, so good for her. Old Hostetter, isn't he dead? He is now.
He is now.
Because she killed him with her sex. You get it?
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
That's fun. I think that's fun. I don't know. I'm fine with it.
I know. I mean, there's no women communicating with each other, but also this is
7-1. Like,
yeah, exactly. I also noted this time on this watch that the first time we see Jordan, she is wearing a tank top and overalls, which is basically my uniform, which I appreciate her for that.
It's the Claudia Kishi of it all. Does that mean anything to you?
No.
Babysitter's Club?
No,
Claudia, the artsy one.
Wrong generation.
Like, she'd be like wearing, I don't think so. The books?
Yeah, the books. I was a Sweet Valley High girl.
But is it a generational thing?
It is. They were a little bit later. My book series was Sweet Valley High.
Yeah, 1992.
Yeah, published between 1986 and 2000. So I was 11 when they started. Wrong generation. I was already onto like aspirational high school books.
Okay.
I was ahead of my time, Andrea.
Anyway, we are spiraling this week.
I know we are.
We are scrambling like somebody at the bottom of a grain silo.
Or a ball pit. Yeah. No, I think it's safe to probably wrap this. I mean, like, we are basically just getting to the point where we're just quoting moles and trolls. One thing that I was reminded of this time around was that Professor Hathaway has a TV show. And I was thinking about how science TV shows were a big thing at this point.
Yeah, Mr. Wizard?
Yes, I loved Mr. Wizard.
I loved Mr. Wizard.
He was so great. There was also other more serious science TV shows that I think this was mimicking. But as soon as I saw that, I was like, when this movie came out, I was probably watching Mr. Wizard. Like,
right. Oh, for sure.
So, okay. I think we did it. I'm so glad. I mean, I had seen Real Genius in the past maybe 5 to 10 years. So I didn't think that there was going to be anything super problematic, but I'm really glad that there wasn't because I just wanted to enjoy one of my favorite movies.
The second those credits, those credits.
Yeah.
Those
you know
opening
what? I
credits
don't remember them as clearly. I think that maybe because I watched it on TV so much too, or like the VHS copy that I had maybe didn't even have the credits.
Or probably I would rewind to almost the beginning is probably what would happen because I didn't need, and I would just start. Because like as a kid, that opening meeting is boring.
Yeah. but it's literally like the history of weapons technology.
Yeah.
Set to like that song, You Took Advantage of Me, which is like pretty direct.
Pretty on the nose, yeah.
Yeah. See, Mitch, I used to be you, and lately I've been missing me, so I asked Hathaway if I could room with me, and he said sure.
You know what? It is very sweet, actually, that because here, in closing, Chris is being a pain and Mitch is annoyed. But I think Chris is doing it with real heart. Like, I do think Chris did actually ask for him to room with him because he knows how easy it can be to crack.
Right.
And he, like, he doesn't want Mitch to suffer in that way, I think.
No, I think so too. I think it's actually very sweet. Mm-hmm. And he is, I mean, like, he's sort of thoughtless sometimes, but he is really generally very sweet to Mitch.
Mm-hmm. Like, when Mitch shows up, he comes back to the room. It's the first time he's met Chris, and he can't find his clothes. Mm-hmm. And it's because Chris unpacked for him. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That's kind of because you think he's like, oh, I threw your clothes out because I wanted to use your suitcase. But no, he
unpacked for him. Yeah,
that's kind of nice.
It really is. It's very cute.
Yeah. Wait. Oh, and then another thing is when he realizes he solved the problem of the laser. Mm-hmm. Val Kilmer's like ecstatic expression of excitement when he's running around and he's like, "You're not Mitch. He's not in the toilet." He's like, "Ah."
Would you be prepared if gravity reversed itself?
That's a door. That's a wall.
So I guess for our listeners, what I would like to know is it just us? Or is this also one of your favorite movies from when you were a kid? Like, and if so, like, what was your relationship to it? Because I don't think of myself as someone who would be drawn to this kind of humor. I mean, I did choose Top Secret. Like, like an onion contained layers. But, like, I don't know. I mean, like, my closest friend, I think I've talked about this, like, we bonded in the beginning because we liked a lot of the same movies. And this was one of them that we would just quote back and forth to each other. But I'm wondering if, like, because it's not a generational thing, because you and I are not in the same generation. We both have this movie as our, like, in our top whatever 5.
Yeah, it does. On first pass, I think it definitely feels like a me movie. I think you wouldn't be surprised to find out that this was one of my favorites in the way you might be surprised to find out it was one of yours. But I do think, which I said last week, and now listeners, if you hadn't seen this movie before and you watched it with us, you might, I wonder if you would agree when I say that, like, on the Molly Ringwald, John Candy spectrum, it is a pretty good midpoint, I think.
Yeah.
Though, is that only because Val Kilmer is so beautiful? Does this movie feel the same way if, like, John Cryer is, no offense, John Cryer, but is playing Val Kilmer?
No, I think it's also because of Jordan. I think because we have a female character that is, like, relatively central to the plot and has a personality and isn't just a romantic interest, that, like, because the difference, if we want to be super simplistic about it, one of the obvious differences between those types of movies is male versus female lead, right?
Right.
And so this has more of a female presence, including the director, but, mainly Jordan, to balance out the, like, goofy maleness, and I think for me that's kind of why it fits more in the middle.
Right. And also Val Kilmer is goofy in this movie, but it's not the goofy maleness that you talk about.
No,
like,
he's silly.
That we talk. He's, like, very silly and, like, very sweet. There's like although sweetness, I think, actually is more of the John Candy side of things.
Yeah.
I don't know that, like,
and he does like lust after women and stuff, but it's in sort of a restrained way. It's not
he's not like a sex pest. He's like nothing about him is restrained, really.
Right.
Like, he is as brash in the way that he comes onto women as he is in the way that he treats the men in the movie. But he's not like a pest about it.
Yeah.
Like, he will hit on a woman and she will turn him down and he will be sort of like almost impressed.
Yeah, he'll be like, okay.
And then move on with his life.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, he takes no for an answer.
Maybe that's part of it. Yeah, exactly. So maybe that's part of it too.
Yeah. That makes sense. I love the scene in the movie where he's like studying desperately on the lawn and a woman walks by and he like just starts sobbing. He's like, I have to study.
Oh, you know what's a little thing that I really love is when he has studied for the exam. He goes in and takes the exam and he gives the I aced this and then the exploding apple.
Yep.
It makes me so happy for him.
Yeah.
Just so confidently, I aced this.
Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you, Chris Knight.
Okay, so next week?
Next week.
We are continuing our December run of movies we both already love. And I would say, again, this is in our, like, at least for me, in my top 5 growing up movies for sure.
Absolutely.
Like, repeat watchings, quoting incessantly.
Yes.
You know, fits in, I think, pretty well with the rest of the movies that we've talked about as well, for a variety of reasons. So, and theoretically, this is my week, but again, this month it kind of doesn't matter because these are movies we've both chosen.
But in terms of division of responsibility, I'll be telling folks what this
Yes.
movie is about next week, and you'll be introducing it.
Correct. So same year, actually, that
Fascinating.
Real Genius came out. I mean, talk about a year for movies. Like, I know we've done this
85 and
before.
86 were big.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
In my brain, this is like John Hughes adjacent.
Yeah, there are a few movies like that. This is one of them.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, it's because the actor in this movie is not a John Hughes actor, but weird. But it's weird that he's not. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So anyway, all that to say, I don't know why I need to do such a huge lead up. But next week, we keep doing that.
I know.
As if there's like all of the suspense. People waiting with bated breath. What's it going to be?
What's it going to be?
Yeah, it's going to be Better Off Dead.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I think there will probably be, again, maybe some little, some jokes that don't hold up. But John Cusack as our hero, Lane Meyer. A lot of skiing in this movie, which is not something that I did ever. No. I'm from New Jersey, like only the rich kids skied, and I wasn't a rich kid, so. But that's our movie for next week.
I am really, really excited for this one.
Yeah, me too.
I say that every week. But
I know.
I love this movie so much.
There's a lot of stuff that connects to stuff we've talked about in like silly ways and also in like real thematic ways.
Wow, we almost left without our Jersey connection.
Oh, yeah, there's 2, because I found one and you found one.
Did you tell me yours yet?
Yes. So the Jersey connection that I found was that when they are on the plane replacing the chip and they're communicating with Jordan and Laszlo and Ick, they are using the code names Abbott and Costello. And if you listen to last week's episode about Patterson, you will know that Lou Costello is a Patterson native. And is very proudly claimed by the state and has a statue of him. I believe it's in Patterson.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And yours was... This one's more fun. This one really delighted me.
William Atherton is in a movie called Jersey Shore Shark Attack.
I have to watch this movie.
Well, we're going to when we get 1 million downloads. It's going up on Patreon.
Right.
We'll do a watch along.
This movie, okay. I have to just quickly read the synopsis of this movie. I know we're not going to talk about it in depth, but trouble encircles Seaside Heights, New Jersey, as once more intense drilling vibrations coming from the town's new beach resort attract a swarm of deadly sharks who crave human flesh. Under those circumstances, the sheriff's son, TC, and his friends, who bear an uncanny resemblance to the cast of Jersey Shore, decide to take matters into their own hands to avert an upcoming 4th of July massacre. Can TC and his team of tanned Guidos rid Jersey Shore of its killer albino man-eaters? Dude.
It's perfect.
I am so happy this has been brought into my life.
Yeah. I'm sure it's terrible, and I'm sure it's wonderful.
I am so excited.
Yeah, 1 million downloads. Share us with your friends, folks.
Yeah, that'll be the reward. If our listeners spread the word and we get more reviews on Apple Podcasts and more sort of friends sharing the podcast with other friends, Your reward will be a watch along of Jersey Shore Shark Attack. I don't know if that's a promise or a threat, but there it is.
But it's a little bit of both.
Yeah. It's free on Tubi.
There you go.
It's only an hour and 27 minutes.
You know, I love an 80-minute movie. I will say this movie is a little, I mean, I love every second of it, but this movie is a little long.
Yeah, it's what, an hour and 50?
Yes, it's like
45?
almost something like that.
Yeah.
And again, in closing, I'll just keep saying that and eventually it'll be true.
Right.
There are like multiple song-long montage.
I love the montages.
Why can't I say montage? There are like multiple song-long montages.
I will say though, those could not be cut. Those are my part of my, some of my favorite parts of the movie.
I think they're great and they feel good to watch, but it is a long movie, and you would think they would be something to go. Maybe there were many more. Maybe this is the
short version.
The short, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think the first montage is the one where we see the, so the first one, the first montage is when we see the classroom progression of like, he goes to class, they're all there taking notes. Then he goes to class and there's a bunch of boom boxes, but still some students. Then he goes to class and it's all recorders and boom boxes, but him. And then the final time he goes to class and it's all recorders and the professor is on a recording. It's a really good built up joke, visual joke.
It's very good.
Okay. Where can they find us?
At WatchersPodNJ on Instagram. They can email us, watcherspodnj@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm. They can review us on Apple Podcasts.
They can review us on Apple Podcasts. We haven't gotten a review in a little while.
Yeah.
Would love one. Or 100. We get 5,000 reviews and we'll skip right to Jersey Shore Shark Attack no matter how many downloads we have.
There you go. Yeah, and they can find me on Instagram at Jodie_Mim, JODIE_MIM. And they can find you
at AQ Andrea Q.
Thank you for listening, and we will see you on the slopes.